Hi there, it's Anne of Rosie Duck Designs here. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. On my previous tutorial I featured both the counting sheep and the coordinating sheep dies to make a new baby card, and I did say that if I had the chance I would come back and share with you a very quick tutorial on how I've used the fencing die, which is part of the die set. It really is a really good element to make quite sort of a fun impact on your card. So once again I'm using the counting sheep with the coordinating dies, which are both Sale-A-Bration Rewards. For both of them, or rather for each one of them, you need to spend £45 excluding postage and packing, and you get to choose a reward. So you could choose the sheep or you could choose the dies. As I said before, alternatively, if you're spending £90 excluding postage and packing, you could choose both of them. I'm also featuring once again yet another Sale-A-Bration item, and that is the Penguin Playmates designer series paper. So I'm just going to use a little sheet or part of a sheet for that on my project. So again, this was featured on my penguin card. Sale-A-Bration only runs now until the end of this month, September. So it really is the last few days to grab yourself a free gift when you place a qualifying order. So as I say, I wanted to just share with you this really fun element, and this is the card that I've made. So I'm basically just going to talk you through the card rather than put it together on camera. But I've used this die for the fence, so you could use it as a single image, which I've done before and just had the sheep jumping over what is effectively a gate. I thought this time I'd make it into a fence. And if you've got a larger piece of card or a larger card you're making, or perhaps a scrapbook page, and you want a fence for some reason, you can always just trim off these end bits and then add another panel of fencing until you get to the desired length that you require. So for this one, as I say, I've obviously used the two, and I've stuck those onto the card using an adhesive sheet. I've just found that they are really good to use to make sure that every element of that die cut element is stuck nicely down onto your project. So for my base card, I've as usual used a 6x8 scored at 4 on the long side, or 20x15 scored at 10 on the long side in the metric, and quite clearly it's in the landscape style this time. The designer series paper is cut at 5 3/4 by 3 3/4, or 9.5 by 14.5 in the metric. So that's just been attached to the front. I've cut out two of the fence dies from Basic White, and I've stuck those probably about 2/3 of the way up the card. I've then stamped each sheep, so each sheep will finish up on the card. So we've got this one, which is ideal for giving the jumping element. We've got this one, which is the walking element, and then we've got the one at the end here who's in celebratory, that's the word I'm looking for, celebratory mood. So I've literally stamped all of those just onto Basic White using the Fresh Freesia, which coordinates with my paper. So I've used that colour. I've then die cut each of the sheep out using obviously the coordinating dies, and then I've attached those to my card just using stamping dimensionals. So we've got the walking one here, the one leaping over the fence, and then with this one I've actually just die cut that one and I've stuck that down onto the card, having first added a strip which is cut at 1/2 inch by just over 6 inches. I've stuck that down using my stamp and seal, and then just trim the edge to just make sure the whole edge is covered. So in the metric that would be 1.5 by just over 20, and then just trim what you don't want. So that's then stuck down on here I've stamped the little hat. I've coloured that in with a dark Fresh Freesia stamping blend, and then I've die cut that using the little hat die. I used an adhesive sheet on the back of that piece of card so that it would stick very easily onto the top of the sheep's head, and I've used adhesive sheet on the back of a piece of Fresh Freesia card, and then I've just die cut out, as I did with the baby card, I've just die cut out the balloon. So we've used most of the dies in this particular die set. The only ones I've not used on this card are the two clouds, which are self-explanatory really. There's a sun and the little flag. So that is basically it. The stamp here, You're Amazing, comes again from the stamp set, and I've stamped that with Gorgeous Grape just to give it a little bit of a contrast, and then I've just die cut that out using one of the dies from the Hippo and Friends die set. So I've used the smallest of this shape die, and again I've added stamping dimensionals to that so that it stands up from my card. You could use a punch for that if you don't have that particular set of dies, or another similar die that's just going to just highlight your sentiment. I've added some Wink of Stella onto the balloon, showing up that well, so I'm going to add another little bit of Wink of Stella. It was getting towards evening when I was doing this. There we go, that's much better. Now with the little hat, I've added, if I didn't say, some Wink of Stella onto the coloured elements, and I did use, as I said, the stamping blend. If you haven't got a stamping blend, another way of colouring it would be to use your Wink of Stella with a bit of colour. So if you just take that stamp out, stamp the image with my Fresh Freesia, and then if you take your Wink of Stella pen and just take it to the side of the stamp pad so that you're not sticking glitter in the middle of your ink, and you're not going to notice it here, then you can just colour in that little bit, the little spots on the hat. So you're adding ink, but at the same time you're also going to be adding some glitter. And then when you've done that, you can just die cut the image out. So stamping blend's brilliant, but if you haven't got those, that's another way that you could use your Wink of Stella in combination with your ink pad. Just to finish it off, I added a stamp of this sheep, and I put the Gorgeous Grape on that just to tie that in with my sentiment, the ink I've used on my sentiment there. So that is it, very briefly, how I've used the fencing element to just add another dimension to my card. Quite a fun card. I mean, I have made this before, and I've done it almost, dare I say, properly, and I've got a blue sky here, and I've got a green area here, and I've added some of the grass, so it looks like literal sheep jumping over a fence, but I thought this was more a fun element. So we've got some nicely pretty coloured sheep with the Fresh Freesia, and just a bit of a fun element going on. So that's it for now. As I say, Sale-A-Bration ends in just a few days, so head over to my shop just to check out the rewards that you can earn. I'll put a link to that on the front of the video as always. So thanks so much for joining me. I'll be back to feature one final Sale-A-Bration reward that you can earn during these last few days of Sale-A-Bration. But until then, look after yourselves. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've enjoyed the video, then I would really appreciate it if you would consider subscribing to my channel. That would be absolutely great, brilliant. I will be back, as I say, very soon. Until then, look after yourselves, and I will see you very soon. Bye for now.